Hello and welcome back to Planet Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Bithoulkas, and it's time for Is It Worth My Time? And this time I'm tackling the Netflix series Cursed. So before I do anything there, I'm going to take care of some business first. If you like what you see here, like, share, and subscribe. If you're still on the fence about subscribing, take a look at the very end of this video. You're going to see a video pop up here. Basically, what YouTube does, takes the algorithms of all the stuff you've been watching and tries to match it as best as possible to one of the videos in my vast video library, and it pops it up there for you. Up there is going to be Stargirl, so it's going to come up there. And if you want to know when I'll be on live again next, you get the bell down below. It's a 50-50 chance of YouTube actually notifying you. Best thing to do is go to suspendedfanimation.com, take a look at the schedule. It's up there. And I also have all the links to my social media up there. So Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. No tier set on the Patreon page. And I've got links to my YouTube channel you're watching right now, my Facebook page, and a Facebook group page for those of you who still have Facebook, where you guys can post stuff and talk amongst yourselves. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to do the non-spoiler version first. So for those of you who are still either making your way through it, like Keith Hamilton there, or just you're still on the fence about whether or not you should watch it, what is this story about? So this is based on the book by Thomas Wheeler. He's the writer, and Frank Miller was the illustrator. He did like about 38 pages worth of illustrations for the book. I originally thought it was the other way around, where it was Frank Miller was the writer and Thomas Wheeler was the illustrator, but no, it's Frank Miller, went back to his illustration roots and surprised us once again. So what is this thing about? Basically it's a different take on the Arthurian legend of Excalibur, if you will. So actually, the Lady of the Lake is what this kind of focuses on. Her name is Nimue. And of course, before she became the Lady of the Lake, she was a person, of course, that kind of thing. And they also, the way the book describes it is the sword of power, the sword of the first kings, Excalibur. What if it chose a queen and not just a king first? And of course, Nimue being that queen. And that's pretty much what it is in a nutshell. Merlin is involved. We do have someone named Arthur. We do have someone named Morgana. Um, all that kind of stuff is in there. We have Uther, of course, Arthur's father, who is the king, but in this context, a little bit different. Uh, she was a person of color. What, Nimue? Nimue, the Catherine Langford is not a person of color. She is white. So I don't I don't know what you're talking about. But going back to that, and honestly, it doesn't make any difference anyway. Um, so this whole thing is kind of a twist, if you will, on the Arthurian legend. Is it any good? Uh, it is. How should I say this? It's kind of like a poor man's Witcher, is the best way I can put it. It They don't have. You can tell the budget wasn't there. It wasn't the budget of other things on Netflix. They did kind of a lower end budget on this one. There's still some pretty scenery and stuff like that. You can tell they shot on location. The soundstage stuff was actually pretty nice too. Special effects are actually good, all that stuff. The acting, a little bit here and there. You have one of the Skarsgård clan that's in there. He plays Merlin. That is played by Gustav Skarsgård. And yeah, I'll get into the specifics about Merlin there, and when we go in there, of course. Which one should you watch first? Uh, Arthur, or I don't know what you're talking about, Joe Greer. Uh, please form your question in the form of a question. And so yeah, is it horrible? No, it's not horrible. It actually is decent, but at the same time, it's not great. That's about how I can put it. Some characters are okay, others are middling to. It kind of struck me as more of a when I was watching it, like I said, a poor man's Witcher, also a little bit more like the 100 on CW, kind of that production value, if you will, and only set in medieval times with fairies. So they have the Fae people, which are fairies, not really fairies, folklore tale based folklore people, if you will. So you have like snakeskin kind of people. You have people with antlers. They all have different. You have people that are called the Sky People. You have people that are of different tribes, and then of course you have a church involved as well as being the bad guys in all of this. The Witcher or Cursed. There you go, Joe. So The Witcher is what I would say. Watch The Witcher, especially since it's coming out in August, the second season. So yeah, Keith, I'll get into Merlin there in a little bit. So is it worth your time to watch? It depends. Have you watched everything else already? If you haven't, there's other stuff you could watch first, and then you can come back to this. Like I said, it's not horrible. It's not great either. It is kind of a middling. Is it worth my time? It is a maybe on that one. That's about as best as I can give. Yes, I know that's a middle of the road thing. Am I disappointed in watching it? Not really. Um, but again, it wasn't something that I'm going to go back and like rewatch anything. It wasn't something that stuck with me. Um, it was pretty easy to watch, and I didn't find myself getting up often. Going to the kitchen and do other things. So, with that said, spoiler alert, now I'm going to spoil stuff from here on out. So if you haven't watched the entire season, or if you haven't watched any of the episodes and you don't want to be spoiled, now's the time to leave. That's all I'm going to say at this point. Thank you, Viking Bitch, for the paddle. Uh, Jay Hicks, yeah, The Witcher is not boring. It's far from boring. It might be a little confusing in the timeline of events because it's not a linear timeline, the way they show things, but it's actually not boring at all. This, on the other hand, so Gustav Skarsgård is playing Merlin, and when we're introduced to him, he's a drunk. He is someone who is staggering around, and it's Gustav Skarsgård for the first couple episodes doing his best Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow impersonation. And not a good impersonation either. He's like stumbling around doing the ooh and grabbing stuff and popping in his mouth. And you're like, yeah, I've seen this before, dude. And you're doing a bad job of it. Luckily, he gets over that by about episode 5, I think is where it is. It's 10 episode arc, by the way. So 10 episode season. And so about midway through, he finally gets over that bad acting decision and actually starts doing a little bit of acting. You could still tell he's not really committed to it at that point, and that's why he's, I think, one of the lesser Skarsgårds, if you will, of acting. And yeah, so the for me, actually, what I liked, the character I liked the best out of all of this was Pym. And I really would have rather have followed Pym around, to tell you the truth, than anything else, just because of all the shit she went through. And she actually has a pretty good character arc, if you will. I mean, sure, she doesn't change much, but at the same time, all the shit she went through to get where she is, and she comes all the way back around again, it was kind of funny. Floki from Vikings, yeah, Keith. Yeah, again, different take on that, because I mean, in Vikings, he's a different character than he is here. Here, it's just, I don't know if he was just tired or if he was just collecting a paycheck or what, but yeah. So Catherine Langford, who of course plays Nimue, in this. Did a good job. Did a, a good job. She wasn't whiny, which they could have really gone with. I'm glad they didn't. On the other hand, the guy who played Arthur, um, and I have to go and take a look at his name because Devin Terrell played a little bit on the whiny side. There was a couple point, he finally kind of went into the I'm a knight mode, and then but for the most part, not so much. And of course, we have, like I said, there's some twists to things here and there. Sister Ingrain, who is excuse me, Igraine, who is Arthur's sister, and we later find out that her real name is Morgana. And yes, if you know your lore, Morgana, of course, becomes a sorceress, and of course, she gets led down that path. But it's all kind of confusing in this timeline. We have an Uther Pendragon, who is supposed to be the father of Arthur, King Arthur, and that whole thing with him being a bastardized, not even a real king or of bloodline, because his mother, who's the queen, didn't want to lose her royalty, so she, her child died in at birth, and so she stole another child, or bought another child, I should say, and made him king. So yeah, it was just kind of, there's some weirdness to it, but I did like how the sword comes to be the sword of power. And this is another thing so I'm kind of confused a little bit by this, by the sword of power. So we see it actually come from Merlin. It is part of it's part of him. It actually grows inside of him, and Nimwe's mother actually helps him remove it from his body. And because of this, he loses his magic. The magic goes into the sword. Now, he also says that the sword was created by Fey Fire, which is this green fire, and it's hard to get. And he wants to destroy it because it makes people go crazy. And the last time he used it, he went on a fucking killing spree and killed thousands of people. And not a good thing as it was. So, what does the name cursed come from? Why is it cursed? Well, Nimue herself, when she was a child, was scratched by this gigantic bear who was supposed to be evil. And she has powers because, being Fey as she is, she was able to kill the bear by using her powers and calling upon the hidden, is what they're called, kind of like elder gods, if you will, to help her defeat the bear. And because of that mark, she is now cursed because of that. And yeah, basically, the church is hunting down Fae, killing Fae, destroying their village because they're saying that they're demons and all this kind of stuff. So you have that going on. Part of the church's arsenal is they've weaponized a Fae called the Weeping Monk, and using him to sniff out where the Fae are because he can locate Fae of their own kind. Um, Again, kind of a weird concept on all of this. And the last thing that we get, and I saw it coming, about half a mile away. I didn't see it coming from a mile away. I saw about half a mile away, and I was like, nah, they're not going to do this old chestnut, and they did. They make Nimue, of course, be Merlin's daughter, and I'm like, really? You're going to go that route? So that's the reason why she wields the sword, and why the sword, kind of gravitates to her and makes her the king, or the queen, excuse me. And yeah, it just didn't feel right. And the whole thing with Morgana becoming the widow, or death, if you will, and that's how she starts getting her powers, was also very confusing too. I'm like, okay, is she now death, or does she just have death's powers? What's going on there? That didn't make too much sense either. Um, and then let's talk a little bit about Sister Iris. Sister Iris being the evil little, she's got this snarl on her face the entire time. And we see her going through the entire story. And of course, she's stalking Nimue. And finally, at the end, they're on this bridge over a waterfall. and Iris shoots Nimue with a couple of arrows, and she topples over into the water without the sword. And of course, Merlin picks up the sword, ends up using all of his anger and his magic, and just starts blowing the shit out of all these different monks and that are coming at him from the church, and blowing them away. Not blowing them, but blowing them away. Choice of words on that one. Sorry. Um, and of course, he ends up grabbing Morgana and disappearing in this twirl of smoke. And that's kind of how we leave off the season, the first season, with Nimue possibly dead, uh, Father Camden dead, of course, from the church there. The Weeping Monk. So we find out there's also a child involved named Squirrel who is part of the Fae, and we find out his name is Percival. There's also a Sir Gawain who is the Green Knight. He's also Fae. He ends up dying to. Well, we don't know if he's dead yet or not. He might not be, but we find out that the child's name Squirrel is actually Percival, and then we find out at the very end that the Weeping Monk is actually named Lancelot, and I'm like, come on. It was a little too on the nose, shall we say, on some stuff, and I wish they wouldn't have taken such liberties with the Arthurian legend. It wasn't pieced together well. I'll say that, and that's why it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth on this one, just on that part of it. Jay Hicks says cursed, not the Witcher. Oh, okay. You said cursed is boring. Got it. Okay. Sorry, Jay Hicks. I'm going back on my statement of what I said before. And yes, The Witcher is not boring. Cursed isn't boring, but it's not riveting either. It's like I said, it's middle of the road. It's for when you have finished, you've reached the end of the internet. Uh, you've watched everything on Netflix at this point. I wouldn't even say that far. If you're just in the mood for like some fantasy stuff and some sword and sorcery, you're not going to go wrong too much with this, but don't expect to be wowed. So, and yes, they do change ethnicities, so not everyone is white in this, which is fine. You don't need to have, honestly, that doesn't bother me, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it really doesn't. Yeah. So is it worth your time? Again, I say it's a maybe on that one. That's the best I can do on it. It's not a no, and it's not a hard yes. It's a maybe. So it's a yes, really, but it's a soft yes. There you go. How's that? Oh man, yeah. I mean, really, this was a tough one for me to decide on. I was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I really couldn't, you know, say no to it. I mean, there's a lot of worse stuff out there. There's a lot of bad stuff that's out there. This doesn't come close to it. I mean, like I said, the special effects are decent. The storyline is fairly decent. It moves forward. I loved Pym's storyline. That was the best thing out of it for me, and it was just because of the actress Lily. Lily, I'm blanking on her name now. All of a sudden, Lily Newmark is her name, and the way she kind of plays, you know, going from one shit thing to the next, and having a little bit of attitude about it, but not enough attitude where it's going to get her killed. But then also having PTSD as well because of some of the shit that she has to go through. And then at the very end, she kind of winds up being her old self again when she gets reunited with Nimue. And I was like, that actually kind of works. I like this. It wasn't bad. And I kind of wanted to see more of her character. I really did. You got to find the bright little spots in some of these things sometimes, and that was the bright little spot in this. So that's where I'm at on this. What else do I have going on this week? Tomorrow, I'm off. But tomorrow is also the first day of virtual Comic Con. So don't count out not seeing something from me. I might, if there's something interesting, I might come on and just do a quick recap of what was announced during the day. Who knows? We'll see. Thursday, of course, is Doom Patrol. So yes, I will be doing Doom Patrol. I might move it to the afternoon rather than the evening. So we'll see how that plays out. And then, of course, there's also going to be some Comic Con stuff there. Friday, I'm off, but again, Comic Con is out. So we'll see that. Did I hear DC Universe news? You're talking about the DC Universe Online game? Because there's a couple different things that are called DC Universe now. Joker. I know they're introducing a new character on DC Universe Online. But Saturday, I'm going to be doing Saturday morning blast off, and then of course I'm going to be end up doing the Comic Con stuff too. Now, what was on the app, Joker? Tell me. Sunday I'm off as well, but again, I'm probably going to do a wrap up of Comic Con, what's going on there, probably at the end of the day, and then of course Monday we come back around again to Stargirl, and Tuesday is it worth my time? And I don't know, I might do just an old school thing. I was actually taking a look at some movies and stuff like that, and I'm thinking about doing the Guy Pearce Time Machine, the one from 2002. I might pick that up just for fun, for shits and giggles. Oh, no more yearly membership for DC Universe, huh? Yeah, that just means that they're going to end up they're getting ready to shit can DC Universe, and that's fine. I go month to month anyway on that, and that's perfectly fine. I knew they were going to shit can it at some point. So there you go. So I'm gonna let you guys go for the night. Thank you, everybody who joined me tonight in the chat, and thank you if you made it this far in the video. What else is going on there? You can like, share, and subscribe. If you're sitting on the fence about subscribing, take a look at the very end of this video. If you like the video that's up here, hit the subscribe button down there. Stargirl is going to be up here. And if you want to know when I'm going to be on live again next, you get the bell down below. It's a 50-50 chance of YouTube actually notifying you. Best thing to do is go to suspendedfanimation.com, where I've got my schedule up where I change it out every week. And I also change it up at last minute too if I'm going to add stuff or change times or whatever. So it's always a good thing to go there. I also have the links up to my social media on suspendedfanimation.com. So I've got Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. No tiers set up as of yet on the Patreon. There's also links to this YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and my Facebook group page where you guys can post stuff and chat amongst yourselves. So with that said, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you on, well, I'll probably see you tomorrow, most likely, for a first day of Comic-Con, virtual Comic-Con wrap up. And until then, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may wind up finding out that Merlin's your daddy. And he's just a really shitty drunk, quite literally, because he takes after Jack Sparrow. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Wash your hands, wear a mask, and I will talk to you probably tomorrow. Good night, everybody.